Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. The love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. Today I have the privilege of sitting next to a very distinguished and unique person, Acharya Navneet. Namaste. Acharya Navneet is a graduate of IIT Kharagpur, and after that he has done a 3-year course on Vedanta at Arshavidya Gurukulam uh, with Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who left his body recently. And not only that, he can be considered what is called a wandering monk. He's seldom at the same place for more than a few days. And his entire bag consists of two bags, as he says. One holds his office, and the other, all his other belongings. Uh, Now, this type of life, which one chooses, in spite of many other more lucrative options available as they are to an IIT graduate, is something that does not happen just like that. As the Gita says that if you have walked the path of yoga in previous lives, then in this life you are born with some tendencies which draw you once again towards the same path, and that's how you can complete the journey faster and more consciously. Before that, all of us have been walking, and all of us are walking the same spiritual path. The soul is evolving from life to life, but then there comes a certain stage after which we start walking that path consciously at a relatively early age. And therefore, if I may ask Acharya ji to think back in terms of his childhood, did he have any such tendencies right then? And as he says that these things sometimes didn't make sense to him when he was doing all this, even when he chose the consciously the spiritual path, even then he didn't realize what he was doing. But in retrospect, one can analyze those things. He didn't do it after all that analysis. It just happened. I say it was sort of going with the flow. But and then in retrospect, he might have observed that as a child he stood out and had some such tendencies. So let's start from the beginning. Of course, I should be careful in using the words. What he felt in childhood was not the beginning. The beginning goes much before that. But anyway, for routine purposes, for everyday purposes, yes, that is the beginning.
Okay. Say, provisionally, I will assume that I had some contributions towards the life which I am living. Even though I can take other stand too, where I can say I had no contribution. But for understanding of many people, this stand is could be better. Yes, during my childhood, mm, I was like an ordinary child, little bright, of course, and a bit of a rebel, and mm, not afraid of things or scoldings or what people think of me. Although that doesn't mean I will be doing things hurting people. I was very sensitive too. But if I'm convinced that what I'm doing is right over a period of time, then after that, I don't care what my teacher is saying, what my principal is saying, or even what my parents or grandparents or whoever, everybody is saying. Let them say what they want to say. Even if I have to meet punishments, that's fine. I'll definitely pray Bhagwan that you solve my problems. But that doesn't mean I will run away from the problem. So that was one of the tendencies.
Well, I think you use a rather harsh word, rebel. It was more of non-conformism
Yeah, it
and
was.
courage. Courage
Yeah,
to stand up for what you thought was right.
that's right. But the rebel word was
Mm.
prevalent,
Mm.
and it settled in my brain because everybody called me that way. So possibly I used
Mm.
that word. Then I had three different stages in my early childhood. If you call 12th standard, being in 12th standard also as a part of childhood for the time being, if we assume that. So one vision I had when I remember I was either in the fifth standard or the sixth standard. I even remember the shirt which I was wearing. I can, because that was, that I cannot forget that vision. Second one happened when I was maybe in the eighth standard, seventh, could be even ninth, something around that time. And third was clearly just after when I had written my board's exam, 12th board exam, and waiting for the result for the IIT. So that of course that time was very clear. And there were three different visions, apparently not, seemingly not connected, but then when I see, they were connected. So the first vision was when I, as I told you, when I was in the fifth standard or say sixth standard, I stood in front of the mirror and nobody was there in the room. And suddenly a very strong question came in my mind. Who is this person? Not that I never stood in front of the mirror earlier, because as a fifth standard or sixth standard student, you have enough age when you get opportunity to stand in front of the mirror many times in a day. And I remember at least for 7 to 10 minutes, I was standing still and watching it. And something was telling me, I have to find out who is he, not the image, this one only. But of course, my finger was towards that image. And then it dropped. Then, when I was in the second incident happened, um, just I remember it was around 10 a.m. or maybe 11 a.m., something like that, just before my lunch time. It was a holiday. And I was mm, partly awake, partly asleep. I was reading some book, and suddenly a very strong vision came that in my past life I was a, I have to use the word in Hindi, halwai. Chef doesn't cover that word.
The
Halwai
chef who
covers,
specializes in making sweets.
yeah,
Mm.
chef who specializes in making sweets. Sweets, and also they are hired by people during marriage times and all to prepare other items. So I was a kind of a chef. And then from being a chef, I became a sannyasi. And I was like half awake, half asleep. I could hear things around me. So that makes me half awake, but not totally awake. And mm, this vision came. And I didn't understand what it meant, but then that's how it was. Third vision, which was very surprising to me, that was just because that year the IIT exam results were delayed. That there was some strike in that year, 1989. So I was waiting for the result, and it was a evening time, and suddenly again half awake, half asleep, a strong vision came that there are many pots of gold coins around me, and I got up. Instead of picking the pots, I crossed over Lang Diya,
Mm.
what you call in Hindi. I crossed it over and I went forward and picked up some Shastra. And
Shastra means holy
some
scripture,
book, which was a scripture. Which scripture, what scripture? Nothing was clear.
you chose the scripture over gold.
Over the pot of gold. And this was not at all what I really, in my conscious mind, it was not there at all. Because I also had some dreams that, okay, um, if I don't go to a foreign country, at least I can stay within India, serve my country, and live little happy life, better life, or whatever. That was also there in my mind. But then this was a very strong vision, and I didn't understand what it meant. And then when I went to IIT, and then I met such people who were having Gita classes. They were like Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, not very formally, informal group. And we used to have uh, Saturday satsangs every week. So I joined that group. So that is where I became literate in the world of spirituality. I came to know the concepts and words, etc., etc. So this is how things happen. And in my early childhood, of course, till my fourth standard, I and my brother were staying together with my parents, a large joint family. Later on, my parents shifted, and I also shifted with them. But then I had a strong pull towards my grandmom, and so I came back to her after 6 months. So from that time onwards, I was reared by my grand, basically. So she became my mom.
So maybe that shift in that environment also might have provided some conditions more conducive to walking this path instead of being with your parents, being choosing to be with your grandmother.
Could be. You see, later on, I realized, even in my childhood, I realized that by choosing to come to grandmom, of course, I got more love from her. But then there were, because of a larger family, so there were many pushes and pulls, which my brother would not face being with just mother and father, parents, which I would have to face. So discriminations or whatever, and so many things were there. I don't need not go into the detail. So life was hard for me, and maybe that hardship helped me to become sensitive, to become observant, and of course, that non-conformist, that thing remained. So I was always at tussle with the other members of the family. So they used to tell me, "You are useless. You won't do anything." And possibly that prediction
In their
came
way
true.
of looking at it, yes, you
Yeah,
did nothing
I did
in
nothing.
spite of becoming an engineer.
So that's what it
That's
is.
their way of looking at it. But I
Yeah.
mean, the signals were there, as you said, in class five at the age of about 10, standing in front of the mirror and spending 10 minutes trying to seriously question who truly is this person? What is the true identity of this person whose reflection I see in the
Right, right,
mirror? And then the second vision of having made a shift in one of your previous lives
right.
from a chef, a confectionery manufacturer, to a sannyasi.
Yeah. By the way, I'm a good cook,
Okay.
even in this
So
work.
that carryover is there from
Yeah,
the previous life. And then the third vision of choosing a scripture over gold. So all these
yeah,
signals were there, but that did not stop you from still joining the IIT and having some dreams of living a good person's life, living like a good person, but a more ordinary life in which you have some physical comforts and family
Exactly.
and so on. So all those dreams did not disappear.
Right.
But then IIT also, I mean, once you are made for something, you'll discover it anywhere. So in IIT, you discovered the Gita classes going on,
Right.
and that made you, as you said, spiritually literate. Before that, it was just coming from within,
Correct.
those intuitive visions in which you were seeing something with
But
not with these
not being
eyes,
able to
not
make
with these
sense.
eyes,
Yeah.
with the inner eye, you saw
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So it was a vision, and yet it was not in a dream, it was in the awake state.
Right.
And those signals were there, but then now began the preparation for your walking the path more consciously, and also towards doing what you will be doing in this life with that type of tendencies. But
That's
again,
right.
and just as the beginning can be divergent, the path that you follow, even you follow it consciously, can be divergent.
Correct.
So it provided that setting.
That's right.
So now you can maybe continue with your journey in IIT and then beyond.
Yeah. Again, when I look back with more words in my mouth and in my brain, so I am able to describe it better. Um, by the mm, end of the final year, it was very clear to me that I'm not pursuing the artha and kama goal. Artha means security, wealth, etc. Kama means fulfillment of desires, etc. Why? I didn't know, but I didn't have that inclination, which all my colleagues and that whole environment was such. Now I have a better word for that. Not that at that time I had those words. Let me confess. People derive self worth from different things. And the most, by default, the fundamental things are artha and kama, the securities, different kinds of securities. Wealth is one among them. Wealth, name, fame, these are all securities and fulfillment of desires. The more desires you are able to fulfill, uh, you feel more successful and you are at the right place. It's worth living. So the self worth is derived from mostly those goals. And these goals are actually, which I now see, are in a, if I put it in a very, very crude words, but that is the reality. The more trash and the more manure, if you can prepare of a variety, the more successful you consider yourself. Because if you become rich and powerful and resourceful, what you do, you eat uh, what you want to eat. Eat includes drink and other things, which finally turns into manure. And the variety of things, if you eat, then the manure has that kind of a variety. And the other thing which you do is you produce more trash. You accumulate things, you use things, more packaging, more. Finally, it adds to the trash of this world. So that is the measurement of success and self worth. And possibly I was. Now I have the words. I didn't have the words then. I didn't derive my self worth from those things, even at that time.
From producing more manure and more trash.
More trash, exactly. Nobody can avoid it because whatever minimal to carry on the body, you will have to produce manure and you will have to produce trash. But one is out of compulsion or out of necessity, and the other is out of deriving self worth from it and doing it more and more. So that part was different. So I knew about that part, that I don't want. name, fame, money, etc., etc. And then there was a deep desire within me. Now that I was more spiritually literate, I had read extensively and many great people, their books, etc., etc. So then, but then I wanted to know it in depth. It was all in paperback books, and I knew paperback books will never give me the real vision. So I need to meet a person or a group of people where I can live a life like that. And so I was waiting like that for that, but I didn't get any such opportunity. So I joined a job uh, for living because I didn't want to depend upon my family members for my living. Even I remember very well in the entire 4 years, you can imagine. In the entire 4 years, I didn't take more than 15,000 rupees from them. I was surviving on scholarship and a tuition, and I was a mess auditor also. So mess auditor means I'll get 75 rupees per month, and tuition means part-time tuition, so I will get 100 rupees a month. And scholarship at that time, I used to get 300 rupees a month. So within that, I will survive. And whatever clothes I took from my home at that time, only when I went to the training for my in my second year, then I had to purchase some trousers and shirts ready made. So more than 15,000 rupees I didn't take in the entire 4 years. Why? Not that they were not willing to give or they were not able to afford. In fact, there were so many people who would easily spare money if I asked for. But I knew within myself that if I take the help, then I have to fulfill the wish their wishes too, and I didn't want to make any such commitment. So better you take less so that you are less dependent, so that you can follow what you want to really follow. So this is how it went. And then when I joined the job, then through some connections, I came to know about this. I didn't even know about Coimbatore. Only on the map I knew, but somebody told me. So first I went there just to check. So I took a leave, applied for a leave. Uh, I wanted 15 days leave, and they said no, 15 days they can't give. But I applied and went. And when I went there to check, I thought I should continue here. So then I sent my resignation letter. And then I continued there for 3.5 years and I completed the course. And after that, my Guruji's wishes. So he wanted me to join the Seva work. And as a Guru Dakshina, what I can give in return. So I picked that up. So Aim for Seva is the platform where we try to serve the society through the means of education. And we have a model of like chatralayams means hostels and schools. So these are our main focus. So I look after a couple of such hostels apart from self-study and delivering talks, etc. So this is how I'm continuing.
So one way you might say is that
Mm.
your preparation for what your inner calling in this life was completed, received that finishing touch. The preparation received the finishing touch
Right,
uh, during that course on Vedanta for three and
right,
a half years.
exactly.
And after that, the Guru gave you how you could. fulfill that inner calling through what type of outer work.
Right.
And that's what essentially aim for Seva is. Aim in stand for All India Movement,
All
isn't it?
India movement
All
for
India
Seva.
Movement for Seva.
For Seva.
And you were well equipped to handle that project because the focus is on education of the underprivileged.
That's right.
And as you told me once, that you have the Chhatralaya model, that you build hostels where you keep the children. Uh, there was not enough finances to build schools of your own, so they could continue going to the schools to which they are going, but to provide them an environment better than they had at home,
Right.
you had these hostels where not only they would have a life similar to what the students had in the past in Gurukulam,
Correct.
but also have opportunities for additional educational inputs.
True.
So that's what you are doing now.
Yeah.
And probably now the network is has spread throughout the country, isn't it?
Yeah. We are there in 14 or 15 states of India. So this is how. That is one part of me. The work involved doesn't define me. I really, I take conscious care. Nothing defines me other than myself. Because if I didn't derive self-worth from an IIT degree and the career later, how can I derive self-worth from any other thing? I don't. I don't. The self-worth, if at all I derive, is from the self,
From the deepest self.
from the deepest self.
So that is the ultimate
So,
fulfillment.
yeah, because you have to continue with the body if you choose to. And if you want to continue with the body, you have to keep it active. So, you need to do something. So, one way is you can go to a gym and then keep it active. Or the other way is if some platform is available, you do something where possibly some other people get benefited. So this is just to keep the body going, keep the digestive system going so that I get hungry at the right time, the right food comes, the body continues without too much of disturbance to others. So this is the purpose of being part of the same. So this is one part of it. If you look from the contributory part, if as I said, if I provisionally tell that I am the doer and I am contributing, from that angle also I can speak. When the nature or Bhagwan or whatever you want to call has endowed me with some intelligence, some able body and all, then it becomes my duty to utilize that, make use of that, and get into those areas where generally others would not like to get into. I'll uh, I'll give you one small, very small, real anecdote which happened to me. Again, it's a retrospectively I'm speaking. It happened, but now I am analyzing it. It was when I joined uh, that Gurukulam at Coimbatore. So once I had come to Delhi, and then with a group of my new colleagues, new students, and then we were going back, and we took. I remember it was um, which express? GT Express to Chennai. And that GT Express had some departure time. I don't remember, around 6 p.m., 6:15, something, whatever. And normally a train arrives at the platform, the source station, 20 minutes to 30 minutes before the departure time. This is the general rule. But this train got delayed and it arrived just 6 or 7 minutes before the departure time. And everybody was rushing to just occupy the seat so that because everybody had luggage and 5 to 6 minutes are short for when you don't expect that way. What I did was, I told my colleagues, you take my bag inside, and I ran towards the guard rather than running towards one of the bogies to get my seat and just comfortably sit. I ran towards the guard and I told, listen, you cannot start the train on time. It has just arrived 5 minutes or 6 minutes before, and this is not the way. Please hold on to the train. Then I came back to my bogie and sat. Now, I don't claim that the train stopped longer because of my saying. I don't claim that. It would have anyway, they would have done. But my tendency was, when everybody else is in a hurry to occupy their seat, my worry was that the train should not start in time. I can anyway occupy, I can run and jump and board any bogie and then come to my bogie. But what about the others? There are
Because
many people.
everybody should get in,
Huh,
even the
huh.
old and the
Or even
infirm,
old and infirm, they can't run like me.
and there should be no accident.
So, yeah, exactly. So I ran towards the guard. So this is how I think that when Bhagwan has given those abilities or whatever, so the areas where others would not like to go, but which is necessary, I must go. And so that I have that moral uh, mm, authority to tell people that you should also do the same thing. Because apart from simply earning and enjoying the fruits of earning, there are duties also towards unsaid duties. You see, paying tax is, of course, a duty, but then that is like, by the force of law, you have to pay it, otherwise, you will be caught. But then there are certain duties where there is no big force of law. It is just stated. And if I don't attend to those and many people start ignoring it, finally it affects the society. I can very well say that the Pratham institution readings, the findings of theirs and many other organizations, that in India, on an average, fifth standard student can't even read and write of at the level of second standard, etc. These are all statistics, data. But then I can talk about it, I can discuss the problem, but what am I doing towards it? So that gives me satisfaction that I am able to go into the areas of society, or the activities of the society where which are ignored and which require sometimes attention of more capable people, and that drives me taking up such things. And I also tell people that at least part of your time, part of your resource, you must invest in those things, not out of compulsion, but out of conviction that it should be done.
Sure, what we do out of compulsion has to be done anyway.
Yeah, that
One
has to be
can't
done
claim much
anyway.
credit
Yeah,
for it, and it may be sometimes out of fear of punishment if one does not do it.
correct, correct.
But there is much more. The spiritual path means that there's a lot more which may not be required, and not doing it maybe even legally and morally not necessary.
Correct,
The way, I mean, you ran to the guard.
correct.
Now, that is not a
That
legal
was
or
not
even a
my
moral
duty. It
requirement,
was not my
but
duty.
all the same,
Mm,
came from within and you did it.
right,
That's what the mother calls, the positive vigilance.
right.
That not only you have to be vigilant about not doing what is wrong,
Correct,
but also not lose an opportunity for doing what is right
correct,
or what is good.
correct.
So that vigilance of both types is necessary on the spiritual
That's
path.
right.
So, and to assume that for walking the spiritual path, not much knowledge is necessary, not much skills are necessary. It's only partly true. Yes, one can be a very good devotee without any unique qualifications. But at the same time, doesn't mean that, as you know, one of our uh, seekers who a very advanced seeker, whom I like very much, Dr. Mangesh Nadkarni used to say, the divine does not need only unskilled workers.
That's right.
So if somebody has been given those opportunities, those unique gifts and talents the way you have received,
Right.
and that's how probably you were not really stopped from even completing your course at IIT and even taking up a job. So all that sort of those experiences you went through, and in that process also collected the knowledge and the wisdom which was necessary for then finally giving something which people needed and in an area where not many would go, as you said.
True.
So that is essentially that complementary, that fit which is required, giving what you have to those who need it, especially when others are not going to give it to them.
Yeah. Which is not glamorous.
Which is not glamorous.
So that's what.
Sure. So that is essentially what a meaningful life comes to.
True.
And you are living that and getting that inner fulfillment in spite of all the disappointments which also come apart from the hurdles and obstacles and difficulties. There are also disappointments. As you once said, sometimes the very children for whom you are doing all this are not grateful enough, and not only not grateful enough, sometimes they don't want to live in those hostels.
True.
They find more tempting to lead a more sort of a life full of freedom to do even all the things that they should not be doing.
True.
Which they can do only when they go out. So, but in spite of those disappointments, that doesn't affect you, isn't it?
Yeah. As I told you, uh, there is a functional role I take up. If you tomorrow, if you put me, say if there is a function in the ashram, and you tell me that the parking area I have to take care so that the cars are parked properly, etc. It's a 1 day role from morning 8 a.m. till the function finishes at 3 and up to 5. Even that I will do, and I will do sincerely, and there will be enough frustrations. Even I may have to shout, I may have to do things which I may not, l- I'm not inclined to do, like shouting or telling sometimes harshly when people don't understand when they are told politely. But once the program is over, the thing goes along with that. So roles will have functional challenges. Nobody denies that. But when I don't allow myself to be defined by those roles, then the problems associated with the roles also don't define me. So it is the role whose problem it is. And as long as the role is there, it will be there. And once I sign out for the day, the role also signs out and the problem also signs. When I log in again the next day, again I assume it. So, not that if you are spiritual, I remember just passingly, uh, maybe when I was traveling in the train or somewhere, or maybe bus, I don't remember. Somebody was playing what you call nowadays a short videos, some 30 seconds, 1 minute video kind of a thing. So I was not watching it, but it went into my ears. Some spiritual personality, he was saying that if you become spiritual and if you live in an ashram, not that you don't face problems. Wherever there are people, there will be frustrations, there will be politics, there will be leg pulling, there will be this, that, everything will be there. The only thing which spirituality does is how to manage it, how to handle it without allowing oneself to get affected. So, all those frustrations are very real. And when I talk to them, I talk in those words, knowing deep within that it's the functional, it's an outside role, it's a which as long as I am logged in, it will be there. Once I log out, it's out. So being spiritual doesn't mean because there are people, because your question I will answer in a little different way, and I have to use Hindi words because this is how people talk to me. Maybe you can translate it in better English words. So they will say commonly in Punjab, Haryana area where I move, आप क्यों परेशान हो रहे हो? आप तो भक्त आदमी हो. Because when I say, "Arey, this is urgent. How can you not do it? How can you do it?" When I talk in an anxious tone, something, so they think being in this dress and being a bhakta, I should not be talking in an anxious tone, because then I should be relaxed. Everything is happening the way it has to happen, and laid back kind of responses. But I am not of that type. If somebody is crossing a red light, and if I am sitting in the car, I'll say, "Arey, what are you doing? Don't do it, please." It has nothing to do with me. I mean, it's a job of traffic police. But then that is my swabhava. Something wrong happening right in front of my eyes, and if I have the time, then I feel like telling. So they think it is against spirituality. This is how people think, but I don't think it that way. It's part of the role.
Being pareshan is also a part of the role.
Being part
Getting
of,
upset or intervening is also a
yeah,
part of the role.
as long as that parishan, that being anxious continues and raises my blood pressure and other things, then I have to look into it. But if it is part of the role, if you have given me the drama, the role,
Mm.
then I must play it. If I have to shout in that role, I have to shout. That's all.
That role has been given, and that role is also helping in one way or the other the spiritual growth of the person growing within.
True.
So the role is only a means, uh, and
True.
the role still remains a role. The roles will keep coming and going, but what stays constant is in the journey of the soul and its progress, and using all these roles also for that progress. So ultimately, the only outcome that is guaranteed is the onward progress of
True. Very true.
the evolution of the soul, or the growth of that one whom you were trying to find out who it is
Who is
while
this
standing in
person?
front of
Huh,
the
who
mirror.
is this person?
In
Yeah,
front of the mirror. So
exactly.
that is the one who is it. That is the real one who is evolving, the real you. Is
True.
evolving.
True. Rest all are
Rest are all roles.
shirts and pants. They keep changing.
Roles keep changing, shirts and pants, they keep changing. When you're
Yeah.
IIT, you were in one type of dress, now you're
Correct.
another type of dress.
Correct.
The dress that you wore as a child would not fit you anymore.
True. True.
So all that.
Very true.
Any last words of wisdom or message that you would like to give?
Yeah. Again, as I said, as we were talking this morning, possibly, uh, w- one should be, this is my opinion again, one should not attach too many meanings to the word spiritual. And I demystify this word, and I make it very simple. Simple. Being spiritual and being non-spiritual, it doesn't make, there are no separate work. Only thing is, certain things what you are doing, uh, mm, from where you would derive your self-worth, and you will make lot of noises in this world, and noises to yourself. Noises to the world is not a problem, because I am a big noise maker, by the way. Otherwise my role will not fit in. I really work in villages and areas where you have to deal with drunkards and all, so in slums also. So I am a noise maker, but I don't make noises for myself and feel good about it. Okay. So where noise is less for yourself and you are contributing more, that is, I feel, one of the simpler signs of outer manifestation of spirituality. Of course, this word has a much wider meaning and much deeper meaning. But at the outer level, being spiritual doesn't mean You are useless, not doing anything. And as I said, I can bet, I can challenge people. You sit and not do anything. How many days you can do it? It's not possible. Even not doing is a doing. So being spiritual doesn't make you useless. You possibly continue to do what you have been doing without your understanding. Now you do with more understanding. Maybe slight small changes you might have to make here and there. That's all. Nothing else changes. There is nothing called spiritual work or practices and non spiritual practices. It is all mostly in the head. Of course, here I assume that we are not, we are within the boundaries of dharma, right and wrong. So if you continue to do right things, you can make any activity as spiritual. So these are my last words. And you can be a contributor. You are not useless.
Thank you. Those are very profound words. And thank you for sharing not only these words of wisdom, which demystify the word spirituality, but also a lot of your life, many things which people don't talk in public about, but you talked about them.
Right.
And I'm sure that would inspire many and reveal to them the deeper aspects of life, the way one cannot do just through abstract philosophy. Having a real person talk about himself makes it so much easier and simpler and more interesting. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
there and hope to have you again.
Sure.
Thank you.